So we have today with us Eleanor Dowdy. Eleanor Dowdy is an illustrator originally from the DC area and now based in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. She has worked as a full-time freelance artist and educator since 2017, finding her niche in location illustration and large-scale works. Eleanor is a guest artist at this year's Sketcherfest in Edmonds, Washington. We're very excited. And Eleanor will be talking with us tonight about how location sketching builds connection to place. Welcome, Eleanor.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, for the intro. Um, I'm gonna share my screen with the presentation I have built for you all. And thanks for being here on this evening. And okay, I think this is the window. Okay, this is a good? Yeah.
Yes, looks good.
We
Okay,
do see
cool.
your whole window still, though, Eleanor.
Try again in a few seconds. Oh my gosh. Am I uh, okay.
That looks correct.
Oops. I just erased it. Let's try again. Not really a presentation builder. So, okay. So I'm going to be talking about how location sketching builds connection to place through two venues or two avenues. One is kind of a definition of what location sketching is and what it can be and how um, it's affected my life and how I exist in the world. And the second half is a kind of my personal journey through this form of visual art. So we're going to define what location sketching is in case you're not familiar with it. Oh, okay, location sketching is simply the act of drawing what's around you and capturing what you see in the moment while you're physically in a place. Sometimes it's called urban sketching, but it's a bit of a misnomer because it can be in a non-urban place. It was urban sketching was coined by Gabby Campanario in I think like 2007 or something. Yeah, I think it was 2007 in Seattle. So we have a bit of a sketching history here. But um, his take on it was more about drawing the built environment. But since then, it's grown into a international phenomenon of people drawing whatever's around them and capturing their world. I would say it's not exactly like the plein air sketching, like these examples of like bringing your big easel out into a field with your oil paints. I think it's a lot more casual and accessible than this. Like you don't need all this stuff, or you don't need to be in this particular kind of location in order to do it. And in fact, I think it's a lot more interesting to look at works that are just about like your specific experience in the world. So it's something you can do by yourself in all kinds of settings, like in a cafe or in a field. Here's some pictures of me doing my thing over the years. This can be very rewarding as like a personal kind of meditative experience. I mean, very, I feel like it's very meditative. And you can also do it as a group activity, which is really fun. These are some group sketching outings I've participated in. It's kind of a nice, like, triangulation activity where we're not just all staring at each other across a table. There's like something to do with your hands and something else to look at while you're still socializing and having a meal. And everyone's kind of doing their own things separately, but all together. So it's a great human experience. So you can see in this array of sketchbooks, in this lunch sketching group I joined in Hong Kong a few years ago. Some people are drawing food, some people are drawing the space, and it's really fun to see what people come up with on their own. And then seeing it all together at the end is always a cool time. We call this the throwdown in the urban sketching world. So, what are we doing when we're doing this kind of sitting around and drawing a place where we are? It's not just about making something beautiful or pretty to me. I think that's what sets it apart from other forms of visual art, that it's not necessarily about the end product. People don't usually like tear out the paper in their sketchbook and frame it and hang it up or try to get it into a gallery, although plenty of people do that. It's more about just documenting your surroundings and kind of spending time really being present and observing what's around you. It can also be a historical record. Some moments are definitely more historical than others. This was, I would say, pretty historical. This was from December when we were having those huge floods, um, like in Skagit Valley, and this was in Auburn, down south of Seattle. So I was driving around with a friend to just see what it was like down there because in Seattle we didn't really like it was rainy, but it wasn't like that rainy. So I was like, what is all this fuss? It looks crazy from the internet. So we drove around a lot and honestly didn't see a lot of devastation. There's just so much area to cover. But this was a really striking scene that I saw down in Auburn. Is a Ladybug Espresso, a very familiar sight for us in Western Washington, but I've never seen one with like a lake around it. So the drawing is really like a testament to a reality that happened. And right now, I feel like, at least where I live, no one is really talking about these floods, even though it was absolutely bonkers when it was happening. This is a way of remembering what happened. And even when I'm so far removed from this now, by spatially and by time. And I was also processing what exactly I was actually seeing by putting these lines on paper, like trying to capture the reflection of the espresso stand, which was the most striking thing about it to me. And by spending the time there to do this drawing, I was also kind of, I guess, honoring the space and the situation here instead of just taking a photo and driving away. It makes you really sit and consider what is in front of you. You can also document happy things. Doesn't have to all be like a crazy historic moment. This was a friend's elopement camping trip in February. So I just took a moment to just record what I was seeing. I was like this nice moment of everyone setting up these fires under tents to have a dinner together. So I wanted to share this in order to share this scene with my friend as kind of a little token of appreciation. And it's really meaningful. I've done this at a bunch of weddings. It's really meaningful for people to get a drawing of a day like this because it just feels a lot more, it feels different than a photo because a photo captures a lot, but it doesn't capture things like a drawing does. And I also really like drawing just day-to-day scenes at home. So this is our kitchen here in my house. This is my husband cooking tamales. Um, this is just a very banal scene. Like he cooks a lot. It's not that special of a thing. It is special, but he doesn't, it's not like a once in a month or a year thing. But I just felt like moments like these should be documented because maybe we're going to move someday and this thing that we really take for granted is going to be like a relic of this time. And I think it'll be really precious to look back on something like this. Sketching also changes your relationship to the place that you're in a lot of ways. One example of this happening to me is when I just walked a couple blocks. I like needed some fresh air or something. And I love drawing old cars. My neighbor has this one perpetually parked on the street. There's like moss growing on it and stuff. And I was like, I'll just sketch this really quickly. Like, I like this car. It might not be around forever. But then the neighbor came outside and was like so excited that someone was drawing his old car. I don't know anything about this car, but things like this have a lot of history and meaning to the people that own them. So I think it meant a lot to him that someone was seeing it and appreciating it. And then he ended up giving me like a little beverage, and I would never have met this guy if I wasn't doing something weird like drawing his car on the street like this. So I recommend just like going out and being present in a space and seeing what happens. Location drawing also creates a tangible thing from this ephemeral experience, documenting something that will not maybe exist for a long time. Maybe it's a tree in bloom for the seasons, or the Alaskan Way Viaduct, which no longer exists, but it did exist when I first moved here, and um, this is just like it's hard to even imagine this being a thing now. Like it's so different in this location, but this is a just a tangible reminder of this experience that I had in this place, and I can actually hear the cars when I look at this.
Eleanor, can you put it on full screen again?
Is it on? It looks full screen to me.
Oh, there it goes. Yep, now it is.
Okay, thank you. Let me know if that happens again. But you don't have to do a big, long drawing to capture these ephemeral moments. Even just a few lines on a really small area in your sketchbook can just cement these memories and experiences in your mind long term. And looking back in the sketchbook, you'll just be able to put yourself there, even if it's not super detailed or even like particularly important. This is just a ferry we took in San Francisco recently. So the boat was moving. I was drawing this and trying to capture some of the landscape just to have the memory in my book. And you can also, if you have some luxury of time and sitting somewhere for a long time, you can capture a lot more details and these like layers of things happening around you, which is very unlike other forms of documenting. Like a video or a photo only shows you one instant. And you can be creative in how you layer different things that you see on them. So I was drawing the space first and then adding some people here and there. Like none of these people were posing for me for an hour, so I was just adding bit by bit, like these characters to fill up the room. And this is a more, I guess it feels more true to me, this whole experience of sitting at this Dahlia sale in Bellevue earlier this year. But of course, you might want to know like how physically do we make stuff like this? And here is my setup. Usually when I go out sketching, there's a backpack, just carrying around a backpack, and hopefully it's not a super heavy full backpack. I try to keep it light, but you have to kind of fight back the urge to carry tons of things. And this is a good place to start if you're new at drawing. The humble ballpoint pen, so cheap, so actually like really nice to draw with. We are blessed to have these in our timeline, and I don't think people appreciate them enough. And this is also to say you don't have to be fancy with what you're using. It's most important to just focus on getting like the lines right and just learning to see and building up that hand-eye coordination more than using some really fancy brush pen or something that's actually harder to control. But I do love my materials and stuff, so I I'm always carrying a little pouch of pens and whatnot, like markers, colored pencils, but just to say stuff that, just like an array of things that isn't too burdensome to carry around. I'm a big fan of watercolor because it's so accessible. It's very light and easy to clean up. You just wipe it out with a paper towel and go about your day. I carry a little prescription bottle full of water, and that's all you really need. Maybe a couple brushes. But I love that this can fit in like a small purse or anything like that. You'll barely notice it. And you need something to draw on. A sketchbook is really nice because it kind of, you can, you don't have to have like a board or something to draw on it. You just draw in the book. And it's nice because it becomes like a chapter of your life bound together. Or you can just use paper, whatever, like a journal or a notepad. What's most important is just drawing. Doesn't have to be fancy. But this picture is so you can see a lot of the different sizes I like to use in sketchbooks. The pocket-sized one on the top to like a large, generously proportioned book on the bottom. But I'm more of a fan of the small to medium size because it's just more easy to take it out and around. Now you have your stuff, so you have to ask what do you want to draw? And there's literally infinite things that you can draw. So it's kind of hard to choose at first. It can be a bit overwhelming. But what we should do more than deciding on the best thing ever to draw is just notice how you feel when you're drawing. For me, I start to really focus on the details. I feel like I'm really present in the space and the moment. My anxiety kind of quiets down and I kind of dissociate a bit, honestly, in a good way. And you start to notice the specific things around you rather than just filling in these blanks with your brain of assumptions. For me, at first, it was drawing was about capturing like beautiful places, and just like appreciating those kind of fine things in life, I guess. This is an example of the stuff I was maybe like 10 years ago really excited about drawing. It's like a nice cafe in, I think this was in Bangkok with like lots of plants and lots of buildings around, and it's very clean and quiet and just really pleasant space to be. And by drawing it, I was channeling my appreciation for it, and I wanted to kind of share that feeling of being at peace and um, try not to say the word appreciative 100 times. But yeah, just showing what I liked about it. I still really like drawing architecture. I think at this point, these are both from 2016. Appreciating architecture looks like drawing it, and somehow like drawing it makes you notice all of these different details, like in the temple on the left, all of those cool flourishes and details in a thing like that. Or on the right is a street in New York where I used to live. This was the street outside my retail job that I had, and it's pretty cool in Chelsea. So, like these very complex scenes that make you feel very immersed in this world, that was something I was and still am very excited about, but I think it looks differently now that I've had a lot more experiences. So now I'm more excited about documenting the world as it really is. Maybe I think I'm documenting it as it is, and I'll change my mind in a few years when I experience more. But right now, that's what I'm working on. This is a the river in Hoi An in Vietnam. I went there on a teaching travel experience last spring. Every night, the all these boats with lanterns go out in the river, and it's really beautiful, and it's very super touristic, but very lovely scene. So, of course, I had to draw it because it's pretty amazing to behold and such a big part of this place. But what I was way more excited about and frankly like happier drawing was just looking at this like boat guy taking a cigarette break because I feel like that is the reality of a place like this, and it's not just a like this beautiful scene that they've created for all kinds of tourists. It's like these are the people that are making it happen. These are this is Hoi An, and I feel like noticing that makes me more appreciative and less just like self-centered in a lot of ways. Another example of something I would probably not have drawn 10 years ago is also in Hoi An. This was in a really beautiful cafe full of plants and really nice space. But I was more excited about drawing this small appliance repairman across the street and just thinking about like there would never be that in Seattle that I know of. Um, and just like thinking about all this stuff in his little shop there and watching him do his thing. And that was like really interesting and a good travel experience. This is a very messy view of a wood shop. I was working with this company based in Sodo last year, and their space was amazing. And I just really wanted to draw all of the clutter in this wood shop. This is Jack's workspace. Like every inch of the tables and stuff were just completely covered in stuff, and it really reflected the reality of what they were like. They were so busy at that point. So I wanted to capture like this moment in time at their shop. And by drawing all of these little things, I was forced to like look at them. Instead of seeing all the clutter, I saw all of these individual objects, like reminders of things and just mysterious little stickers and funny objects. And I'm just happy I got to document something like this. So anyway, what you can draw here is you can draw to fill time. Doesn't have to be like a 2 hour long drawing like this. It can be a 5 minute drawing, like when you're waiting for the bus. This is from Chicago when I was waiting for a bus. Even though I was only half paying attention and trying not to miss this vehicle coming, I still can remember like the light and the all the buildings around me, even though I could only draw a little piece of it on the left. And then on the right side, I was drawing just something that I could see whenever the bus stopped to pick people up or let people off. I get very motion sick, but I still want to draw. So this is my solution to doing the fastest drawings ever. And it's still really fun and captures this experience of being in a different place. And these are some dogs that lived at the hotel I was staying at in Hoi An. I think I was just like waiting to be picked up or something, but I really wanted to remember these dogs because they were such a character in my time there. And taking a photo would be easier, but just wouldn't be the same as drawing them, even though, yeah, they're pretty basic drawings, but I find them so endearing, and I'm just really happy that I spent a few minutes capturing them. Or this is from Paris, just waiting for coffee or something like that, and drawing like the amazing outfits as these were when people were waiting at a red light to cross the street, so I got like a second to try to capture their silhouette and their fashion. And it was like never quite got it, but it was amazing to see people dressed that well all the time. And now I have just a little souvenir of those experiences. One of my favorite approaches is to just draw the view and you have a nice seat. You don't have to overthink what exactly you're going to draw or like getting the perfect view of something. A lot of times these are a more rewarding experience because you have lower expectations for yourself. Like you're just trying to find something interesting. These two drawings are done from the same spot, like a block from where I live. And yeah, something I see like every day, but and they're like very just normal scenes you'd see pretty much anywhere in Seattle. But it's a fun challenge to find something interesting about what you're looking at instead of just taking it for granted or being like, oh, that's boring. I don't want to draw it. I promise there is something very interesting about it that you will see as soon as you sit down. And yeah, banal, non-attractive things are always great to draw. Less pressure to do it justice or capture its like nuanced, complex beauty. So sometimes you can just draw a little stall that's selling like dried squid and corn. And by spending time like observing something, you will oftentimes I see like things that make me laugh so much, like when she just like put this corn back in the basket after it after it fell out. Oh, it's just like the world is so absurd sometimes. And you'll never notice it if you're on your phone scrolling. So it's a little reward for resisting that temptation. Sketch waiting is a word coined by some urban sketcher somewhere. I could not find the official credit. But it's just the act of passing time with a sketchbook. Same as before, drawing something that's not necessarily the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's still really nice to pass the time in this way. Like when my plane was not taking off for a very, very, very long time at SeaTac because of ice or something. So this was like such a breakthrough moment for me because I'm like, I'm stuck here. There's nothing to draw, but I'm just gonna draw whatever I see out the window. And soon enough, I'm like, I don't want the plane to move because I want to finish this sketch. And it just flips this switch in your head of like being frustrated and annoyed to being like, oh, I'm so glad I have this time that I get to draw here. You can also draw at the laundromat is a great way to kill time. Similarly, I was like, I think my laundry is done too fast actually, because I wanted to keep drawing people. This is a phenomenon about the actual object that you create when you draw. Like, besides being an image and an action, you also get a tangible thing that you can flip through if it's a sketchbook, and it helps you recall that moment a lot better. This is from what, 2017 in Chile, my sketchbook there. Not like my mm, yeah, it's not like my proudest sketchbook ever. I was learning a lot at that time, which always is uncomfortable. But the sketchbook itself, just touching it and flipping through it brings me back to all kinds of moments and memories that I don't even know where those photos are, but I could look at the sketchbook right now and just get a different experience. And even though this trip was almost 10 years ago, I still can remember like this specific place so clearly. And then you remember things that happened to you during the experience of drawing there. Even though there's no clue about this in the drawing, I remember like the people that gave me a snack when I was sitting here, and that has really set the tone for this trip. And I just hate the idea of wasting a day of my life. Like we have one precious life. So even just doing a drawing of something really not that interesting, like the grocery store, it makes that day stick. And it's proof that that day happened. And that's like something I do a lot. I like to just record my life so it feels longer, I guess. Even the tiniest drawing can bring you right back there. Like this one I made from a red light, waiting at a red light when I was leaving Buenos Aires a couple of years ago. Like this was less than a second. Sorry, my cat's climbing on me right now. Yeah, I can remember so much about this, like the light and looking out the window in the car. And if I took a photo of this, it would not really ever capture the moment like this does. It triggers that memory and it feels super nostalgic. There's the myth of the perfect sketchbook. I think this is a problem with sketchbooks is that they tend to feel very precious. And if you like make a bad drawing, it's gonna ruin the sketchbook and you'll be so upset about it. I definitely understand that feeling, but you just have, I really would never recommend to tear out a page. If anything, draw over it, but don't tear it out because you might really regret it someday because it's a journey. These are two drawings in the same sketchbook. This one I feel like is a very just beautiful scene I'm very happy with. And then this page, I really don't like this drawing of Victor on the left side, my husband on the ferry. Like I redrew his face so many times and it looks so smudgy. But when I lost my sketchbook a few weeks ago and it was returned to me, thank God. It was pages like this that I was really more upset about losing because it was just like this record of the like precious moments. And I guess the big difference between just having loose paintings versus a bound sketchbook is just like an emotional difference in that object. There's pros and cons to both. Loose paper is lighter, have a lot of flexibility with it, and then but sketchbooks are this a chapter of your life. So I think both are good. Something I think the best part about the this sketching practice is the connections you make. Like I'm a very introverted person and I don't talk to strangers on my own, but drawing in public is like a way to get people to have conversations with you sometimes in a very passive way. And you get to meet people that you would not meet otherwise. So back to Hoi An, Vietnam. I am riding a bicycle through the rice fields outside of the town and I'm getting lost, but I'm happy about it because it's so beautiful. And I stopped to draw this little shrine that was just in the middle of the field. Importantly, it was under a tree, so there was shade because it was so hot. So I was like, I'll stop and draw this shrine. It looks like someone's really taking care of this. And then this man came out of the house. He was like working around the area, and I showed him the sketch, and he was like so excited. And he started trying to talk to me, and we are like talking with our translate apps on our phones. And then he wants to like take some photos with me, and he swapped our hats for some reason, which was adorable. And then he invites me into his house, which is next nearby, and like keeps talking to me through his phone. I get to know like his story and his connection to that land. He talked about his kids who are like in computer jobs in the city and gave me a beer and he smoked tons of cigarettes. And it was just so cool to meet this local guy that he probably sees tons of like tourists cycling around town and doesn't really bother interacting with them. But I like to feel like I'm special because I'm like giving him something. I'm not just like rambling through the fields and taking lots of pictures. like I gave him something by drawing his shrine. And it's really nice to be able to share that with people. This is in my neighborhood. I was drawing on the sidewalk. Not really like a big fan of this drawing, but someone who saw me on the street started talking to me and was like, "Well, it's really interesting you're drawing this." But they said, "I wish you could draw what used to be here." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I don't know what you're talking about." And then we started talking about this park that was across the street that used to have this huge tree in the middle of it, and we started talking about like gentrification and why the tree was cut down and his assumptions about that. And then I kind of got curious and went through this whole research thing on Google Street View and learned a lot about the neighborhood through that, just that comment that I never really thought anything about this park before, but now I know what it used to be like because of that connection. Uh, Location drawing also helps you be a better noticer. So if you haven't noticed, I do like drawing at like red lights and these quick pauses. This was a drive I took through Mexico City a couple of years ago. Um, and every time we stopped at a red light, I just looked out the window and tried to find something interesting to draw. So this is a journey from I forget where we were going even. But I do remember like this man here planting flowers in this blazing hot sun and just all these moments of the city that feel really authentic to me. And it makes you use all your senses. Like this scene was supposed to be about the Santa Cruz boardwalk, but it ended up being about this man playing the piano kind of obnoxiously. But I feel like that was an honest rendition of what was happening there. Context. By sitting in one place for a really long time, you see a lot of stuff. And it's like stuff I could never imagine or come up with myself. I'm a definitely an observational artist, so I'm not like using my imagination that much. I'm just editing things. So I feel like this helps me really get outside of my bubble a lot. Um, So this drawing has nothing to do with this story, but I just witnessed this young lady who was, I guess, having like mental health issues. She sat down and started writing in a journal, and this other person came up and started accusing her of stealing the journal from the bookstore, and they like tried to take her journal away from her, and she was just screaming and crying, and it was really horrible to see it just happen so fast. Um, And then she was very upset because it was very upsetting. If someone accused me of stealing and taking away like my belongings, I would also be very upset. But then like security came and kind of chased her off. And I think stories like that just make me remember that there's a lot of complexity that we can't imagine and we can't assume things and nothing's really simple, so we have to be empathetic as possible. So why don't you just take a picture of a scene instead of doing all this work to draw it? It's more like a time lapse than a photo. So we talked about this a bit before. You can just get this whole different experience, this whole different take on a scene like this by kind of layering all these moments on top of each other, and you create a more honest take on that place instead of just having like two or three people on the stairs. This was more about having a lot of people on their morning commutes. You choose the details to include on like a photo. This was about this lady who made a shirt for me in Hoi An, so I really wanted to have her in the tailor shop. So I was sitting there for a while and I made sure that she was in it. And everyone has their own take on a scene. Like what I draw is going to be different from what you draw and how you draw it. So here's some examples of places that I've drawn with other people. And even though we're in the same place at the same time, the way we compose and the details we focus on are really different. And your drawing style reflects your true self, which is such an incredible thing to realize, like this invisible manifestation of your personality and your influences and the things that you like and care about is coming out in a physical form is pretty amazing. So I drew the Snoqualmie Falls with two friends, Eduardo on the left and this like soft graphite style, me in the middle, and James Richards on the right with a very like bold, linear, energetic approach to the falls. We're all looking at the same thing, but the way we capture it and the things we capture are so different. Oh, okay, I have so many slides left to go, and this is part two. This is my story. My current niche is a location illustrator, which is kind of a combination of my background as an illustrator and what I do as an urban sketcher. Some projects I do for clients are just capturing spaces like this for like commercial purposes that they can use for other things. I also do a lot of large scale work, which is really fun to make things like that are going to be really big and impactful in a space. So these are some stuff for hotels. This is a bowling alley in Lanai that just opened recently. So I actually got to go to Lanai because they had a serious budget for this bowling alley. But they really wanted me to capture the particular mountain, like the silhouette of this mountain that's on the island accurately. And I looked at so many photos of it, but being there and seeing it was just like I would never be able to get it. And it was really important that it looked right for the locals that are going to be there. And then recently I did this campaign for Seattle, which you might see around town. And this they chose me because I big Seattle fan and I it's supposed to really resonate with people here and really look like scenery and houses and plants that you would see in this city. So this is my niche. This is a big question I get a lot is how long have you been drawing? And this is the answer. But everybody draws when they're a child, and a lot of people stop, but I just didn't stop. I was lucky. And I was also doing like digital stuff. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I've been like on posting online since I was a child, basically early internet age. I got a BFA in Communication Arts from Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. Foundation drawing class was a big turning point for me because everyone was encouraged to draw from life to get good at drawing. And drawing is the number one skill in any art medium. You have to learn how to draw. So we use the Bic ballpoint pen for all of these just drawings of random objects around. We had to do like 100 or something. And we had this was the I found my final project from that, which I think was like perspective drawing outside. So this was my big drawing of a park in Richmond, all in a ballpoint pen. And I was also doing sketchbook stuff. This was a trip in 2010 to San Francisco, still trying to draw those cafes. So my major communication arts, basically illustration, but had a lot of practical applications like design and photography. But I also took classes in the fine arts school, and that was amazing because that class taught me what I actually like to draw, which this was a big turning point for me, was drawing houses that had the same address as my house in different cities and making silkscreen prints out of them. So illustration school is never about what you want to draw. It's always about doing something like someone's going to pay you for. But the fine arts department is kind of the opposite, for better or for worse. So yeah, I just realized I really like drawing cities and using Google Street View a lot to just feel like the authentic feel of that place. So then I moved to New York. I wanted to be a window display designer, and that's kind of where you have to live to do that. But I kept drawing a lot, and for the first time, it was a big social activity. I met this group of people who uh, really liked drawing on location. We went out and drew together a lot with these meetups we organized with ourselves. There's some drawings from that time. But then I found Urban Sketchers, that organization I mentioned at the top of this, in 2017, kind of by accident. And I had no idea there was this huge network of people who did what I did. And of course, it was pretty amazing. This was like a drawing I made at, I think, the first meetup I ever went to, kind of on this Sotheby's rooftop. So it was also a cool way to see places that you wouldn't find on your own because it's always a new place. And of course, there's so many places to go in New York. So I found out that Skechers are everywhere. So not only local groups where you live in your city, but you can also meet people when you travel. Like Charlene, when I was in Genoa in Italy, took me to this little square off the beaten track that I thought was really beautiful. And when I was in Buenos Aires, Juan reached out, who followed me online, and he's a musician and sketcher, and he just brought his friends out who he sketches with, and we went to like some really cool places. And it's just such a great way to see the city because they take you to places that you would not go out by yourself, and like they're not going to be in the tourist guidebook necessarily because locals don't really want to go to those places anyway. Then in 2017, I moved to Seattle, and it took a while to fall in love with it. But I remember the first thing where I was like, oh, this is what it's about here, is just looking at the trees and the houses kind of smooshed in together on the hillsides. And that was something I never saw before in the East Coast. And I was amazed by just that you can see so much here because of all the topography, the mountains, the water, and that kind of scratched this itch that I had to just draw more than what's immediately in front of me. Because you can just go to the top of the hill and get a crazy view. And I don't know, I think maybe people here take that for granted sometimes. I ended up moving into Eastlake. I was like amazed I could live 2 blocks from the water and it not cost like $1 million in rent. I was really inspired by the mix of the scenery on the lake and the working shoreline. Like it's not just fancy buildings and yachts, although there are yachts. There's a lot of yachts there. There's like the Lake Union dry docks and the floating homes where I got to go there a few times, and it's just like such a cool thing to get to explore. And even the highway infrastructure built into the hill was really interesting in like this really intense scale. Um, at first it was mostly about like collecting places to make into prints and sell for like my little art business. I was like trying to get a job, but it never happened. And then I just started doing a lot of markets and then got busy and just did it full time from there. So this is the kind of stuff I was doing at first, just getting like the main things. I was exploring a lot to get these, which was a great way to get out of the house before like the winter came. So I don't really know the history or like the relationship of these places to each other, but um, I just enjoyed exploring a lot. And then this piece, which was on like Melrose and Denny, was kind of a breakthrough for me in a technical standpoint, just doing a painting like this. And I think it captured this authentic view of a place that isn't captured a million times, like Pike Place Market. And I think I was starting to understand like the soul of Seattle a little more as I was uh, doing all these drawings. So this is my, mm, I was trying to inspire people to love where they live. So maybe we can appreciate it more, preserve them, and make it better, kind of like an urbanism mindset. And then COVID happened. Things changed a lot, different pace of life. I had moved into this very small but very well designed micro studio after going through a breakup. I don't know if I would have done this house or like this living situation if I knew the pandemic was going to happen, but it happened. But drawing in this space made me actually feel like I was home. Before then, it was just kind of a place that I slept. I didn't spend a lot of time there, but I remember seeing the sunset in there for the first time during COVID and just starting to appreciate it more and feeling more settled, even though things were pretty crazy. I also got to go on some walks in the neighborhood, which I had not done before at all, and made a bunch of drawings of the houses and just started appreciating the Central District a lot, having never really spent much time there before moving there. And we recorded a historic time. Um, at the time, this didn't really feel like much, but I'm really glad I documented these kind of absurd but very telling things like this kid brazenly climbing on a playground that was taped off for some reason, so we didn't get sick. And then this also found this drawing of the popcorn cart in Seattle Center that was just destroyed and just mossy, like moss growing under it because no one was there. Um, and I just think this wouldn't show up the same way in a photo because you call attention to these details by the things that you choose to include in your drawing. So for this, I'd say like the green on the ground is an important part of this. Then the Substack era, I was getting a bit disillusioned with Instagram with the changes they were making. And I sort of decided to try out Substack because there's a more meaningful environment online, like for consuming art and media and stuff. It's not a perfect platform, but it did have an effect on the work I was making. So my idea is just to post a sketch and a little caption each week, kind of like what I was doing on Instagram. Um, People told me they liked my captions and I enjoyed writing them, but I felt like a lot of people just scroll past because it's not really what Instagram is kind of designed for. So this is my first post about this bridge in Montlake and just what I saw and experienced there, this little sketching moment. It was also kind of a trick to get myself to go outside and draw more when life was getting busier. So these are some posts I made with the sketches, and I found the most easy thing to write about was interactions with strangers. Like, um, I discovered in Hong Kong when you're eating lunch or something and you're by yourself, they're gonna put some random strangers with you. Because like, why do you get a whole table to yourself? And then going to this bus driver memorial, I thought would be interesting. This was beginning of 2025. I had a lot of feelings about it as like a transit rider because I don't want bus drivers getting killed doing their jobs. But because of this drawing experience, I ended up going to the memorial and learning a lot about the Sound Transit ecosystem and culture there. And then kind of continuing in that vein, Trump #2, early 2025, things are still kind of crazy. But when Doge was happening, it was just like, why am I drawing like pretty pictures and stuff? Because this feels like not what anyone cares about, and it's not what I care about right now because this political stuff is very disturbing. So this was a Urban Sketchers meetup at the UW Biology Greenhouse, which is an amazing place full of amazing plants. But I was like, why am I drawing plants when all these federal workers are getting cut and the government is like in a point of possibly collapsing and it's terrifying. But I found this array of seed pods in like random jars and containers on this desk, and I was like, this seems like something worth drawing because I feel like sketching could be a way to communicate what institutions are actually doing in a way that can't be written off as easily. It creates like an authenticity of experience here, and I noticed a lot of different things that add this very human touch to it. And then one more part here, just about travel sketching. So when I travel, I've always liked traveling, or I've always liked sketching and traveling. But sketching has made me feel very grounded in a foreign place, and it's always something I'm excited about doing when I travel. It's also free and you can do it anywhere. When I started doing like my own travel as an adult, I think I just was like collecting these impressive views to flex my skills or like, "Ooh, look at this rooftop I got to go on." And I don't really know. I don't relate to these drawings that much. I was basically like a photographer, just kind of collecting things, but not really connecting to the place. You'd also say like you're like above it, you're not really in it here. I still like drawing like views like this, but it's not what I'm really inspired by. And eventually I got like more courage and more wisdom and more honesty to just draw what I see and not try to edit it to my sensibility. Um, and I started drawing stuff like this, like tourist stand, whereas before I'd be like, I don't want to draw the tourist stand. That's just like something made up for people like me, and it's not real. But it is real, and it's a part of the place, and I don't think we should ignore it. So this was in Nepal. Um, and then I showed it to this lady, and she was so delighted. Kind of like the Vietnamese farmer guy I showed, same thing. They're like, they don't really expect this. And I think as a tourist, we're always consuming, and sketching is a way to give something back to people who live there, maybe just brightening their day a little bit and doing something unexpected, something outside the norm. So if you do location drawing, I definitely encourage you to um, wrangle some courage and like flip the sketchbook around and show someone what you're doing because they might be like it might really make their day. And that's a really small thing we can do to make the world a little better and connect more with our fellow humans. Oh, okay, that's my slideshow.
Wow, thank you so
Whew,
much.
1 hour.
Yeah, nice. You're just like right on the dot. Um, so yeah, Robin, have you collected some questions that you want to share?
Jenny, I'm sorry, I'll share them to you if you want. Hang on just a second. I'll see if I can get them to you.
Okay.
That way you can ask them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
I
that's
thought I'd
okay.
already done that.
Oh, I wasn't sure where maybe I'm not looking in the right spot. Sorry.
It should go to your email, I think, probably, and then you can get into it. I can start with the first one if you want.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Actually, I'll start with the first two comments that we got. Usually we get a lot of comments first. So, um, The first comment was, "Oh, I love that, a chapter of one's life through sketching." And that was in the beginning when you were talking
Oh,
about sketching your life. And the second comment was, "I drew something for 3 hours yesterday for a friend, and I was so focused on finishing it." And there's a big laugh emoji, apparently. That's a great brain thing.
time
Did you get it,
flies.
Jenny?
Yep, I've got it.
Okay.
Okay, and then Kirsten was asking, how long did you spend on this cluttered woodshed? There's so many
Oh my gosh.
details.
It was probably like 2 hours.
Oh, nice. And another comment, I love how you captured the power lines at the little shop. It reminds me of my time in Bali and being shocked, no pun intended, by the jumble of wires I saw everywhere.
That's real, yeah.
And Ryan's question was, my hardest problem is perspective when sketching. In your woodshop drawing, it seemed like everything is accurate to size. What are some tips to have our sketches match our point of view in reality?
Oh, for that one, I started with a little pencil sketch of the big shapes. And yeah, I think when I think about perspective, I think about like my eye level more than vanishing point. So just finding like that point where your eyes are. Everything below that point is you'll see the top of that surface, everything above it, you'll see the bottom of that surface. So thinking about that really helped me get some of those details right. And then I'm also not like super accurate with it. I just try to keep things like consistent. So if it's a little off, then the next thing I draw has to be off in the same way. And you kind of get these distortions that can end up looking kind of fun.
Great. I lost my page disappeared, but here it is again. One second. And Robin, if you want to jump in really quick, I need a second here. Sorry. Oh, wait, here it comes. Okay.
Get it?
Would you have changed anything about your journey? Dana wants to know.
No, I don't think so. Like everything that happened to me and the path I took, I think all the detours actually made me a better artist in various ways. So I can't think of anything I would change at all.
Mhm. And Elena wants to know, for transient scenes like the lady journaling outside Left Bank Books, how do you hold on to what you see long enough to sketch it accurately?
Um, I guess for like when people things are moving and stuff, you can like if someone's standing there, you draw their head and their shoulders and then they move, then you can just draw the body of somebody else that comes along, or you just leave it as like a disembodied line or something, because that creates like an interesting texture in the sketches too, just leaving those things unfinished.
Mhm.
It's an authentic representation of your experience. So I always think being authentic and honest is a good way to approach it.
Yeah, I think people tend to struggle with like, oh, I can't, like what is a finished drawing and what's
Hmm.
unfinished, and is it okay to leave parts unfinished? I think that feels scary.
Oh yeah, I get it. I get it.
And Don says, do you always complete your sketch at the time, or do you also take a photo and complete the sketch later?
I do complete it later usually. I think having a little bit of distance from the experience can help you make more objectively good decisions. Like if you're on location and you're just getting frustrated and like sweaty and hungry, you're not having a good time, then what are you doing? So, I always at least start it on location though.
And do you, another user said, do you shade at the same time as doing the image, or um, is the touch up at a later date? It's kind of the similar question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I depends on the drawing in terms of shading at that time, but yeah, same answer, I guess.
Okay. Let's see. So just a comment that somebody says, Stephen Covey says in The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. Um,
Mm.
let's see. Jenny wants to know what the origin of your Instagram handle is.
That was another another venture. I think, yeah. So I mentioned I wanted to be like a window display artist. That was gonna be my like my handle, and it just came about because I was thinking of just words that looked nice together. I think the words look nice together, like visually. It's short and sweet.
Oh, that's great. We got more comments. Truly awesome. I think another person said, I think it's important to draw pretty and mundane things when there's a lot of turbulence in the world. A lot of people need things like that.
Hmm.
And then thank you for addressing this difficult political moment. Um, and Rose asked, what do you feel about being compared to a photographer? I'm not sure.
Mm, I feel like, I mean, I've only actually gotten the why don't you just take a picture comment a
Hmm.
couple times. I feel like it's very misguided because it's just so different. It's just such a different skill set. Like I'm not a good photographer either, so I just think it's a educational opportunity maybe.
Yeah. Um, let's see. How do you decide where to start when you have a big busy scene?
Yeah. I would start with, I usually start with like the largest thing that I want to include. So maybe it's one particular building. I would draw some vertical line of that. So then everything else will fit in compared to that. And yeah, if there's something transient that that is the thing I actually want to draw, like a shop or something, you never know when like that shop is gonna close down for lunch or something. So don't delay in getting the thing that you're actually interested in and then just kind of fill in around it.
Nice. And then, is a prescription bottle watertight?
Ish.
Ish. Okay.
If it's upright, it is.
Well, great. Thank you. We've already been getting some thank yous for a wonderful overview. Um, are you um, doing a little bit of a sketch for us, or do you
Um,
feel like you have time?
yeah, I can do a little sketch. So let me pull this up. Yeah, I didn't think the presentation would take so long.
Oh, no, no
But
worries.
so in that link that I shared with you, if you share that, there's gonna be a little street view link.
Oh yeah, it's in the chat now. It's
Okay.
yep. Yeah, it's a Google Street View, yeah. And this is being recorded for anybody who has to leave, so you can also watch this later.
Yeah. I was just gonna do a really quick little basic sketch to show you like my approach here. Wow, it's so dark for some reason. Let me fix this. That looks horrible. Mm, Like, wow. Don't I do this?
Well, there it goes.
Yeah, it's somewhat better. And then let's focus it. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, so I'm just looking at this little Everett scene that I found randomly, because it's a very normal thing that you might just see if you're waiting for someone. I was like, this is the kind of scene I see when I like buy something from Facebook Marketplace or something, and you just go to some random place that you've never been before. So but I think it's still kind of cute and captures the scenery well. So I'm just drawing straight in with a black hard-tipped brush pen because I think you'll be able to see it pretty well. So I would start, as I said, like the biggest thing that I want to include. So maybe that's that first house. And placing that is going to help me proportion the rest of the scene out. Drawing from photos like this is really different than drawing on location because it's already flattened out for you. Like it's not a three-dimensional space, although Street View is kind of like the closest thing that we get to actually being there. It's not quite the same, but it gives you something like it. By the way, I do a free Street View drawing session every month on Zoom. It's called Street View World Tour, and the next one is on Thursday. It's the first Thursday of each month. Just like a low pressure way to uh, sketch in a group and see some interesting places around the world. As you see here, I'm like darkening some areas. These are called spot blacks. They just make the drawing pop a little bit. So I'm adding those where I see like a shadow area. These solar panels. Love drawing little cars like this. A lot of people are like very scared of drawing cars, and I think they're actually one of the easier things to draw because they're not that complex. They're kind of just like boxes. Just looking at where they intersect to place them so I don't have to make up a bunch of details that aren't there. Like that's not what I do. The little car collection, pretty good cars here. And then the bin, because I guess it's recycling day. And of course the big old blackberry bramble. I'm just gonna like scribble that in. That's way too complicated to draw like accurately. Helps to squint sometimes if you're struggling with a very complex thing. Your brain is telling you like, oh my gosh, there's so many details and leaves and thorns in this bush. How can you possibly draw it? But if you squint at this, then what you actually see is kind of just like a blob with there's like some darker areas in some spots. Like maybe that's all you need to do. You always want to draw what you actually see and not what you think you see. There's a with Google Street View, I can shift the view up so I can see the top of the trees there. Very Western Washington looking conifers. I see a comment. Is it a good practice to draw the basic shape outline? I kind of missed it. But basically, yeah, do big shapes first and then go in with details later. But I don't know, it's not like a hard and fast rule. Like I'm kind of doing a fair amount of details as I'm going. But yeah, going from big to small is probably the preferred way of doing it. But yeah, I like these kind of scenes with these like big house shapes receding into the distance. Kind of just doing like a silhouette of these trees, a bunch of different kinds of trees here. And also a good thing to note is you don't actually have to draw everything here. It's definitely good to leave some white spaces, but places where you don't see like a big delineation of like a line, like there's no line separating the street from the driveway, so I'm not going to draw that. There's like a bit of a grassy area that I can depict more with a texture than a like a hard line here. And this is a Tombow Fudenosuke pen. Really good pen. Love this pen. Not too soft, but it gets a good variation of lines. I think I just need a little more of these black areas. I think my focal point is the cars here. I think that's the most interesting part. They're kind of like a little family here, or like a trio of some sort. Like they're all their personalities. All right. And then like things get kind of faded out when you go further back. You can't really see all of these details anyway. So kind of breaking it down to just some major outlines. Something I like to do is draw in a continuous line where I don't pick up my pen, kind of merges all these shapes together in a loose way. Okay, this is Everett. All right, there's my little demo.
Oh, that's great. Like, I feel like drawing like that scene to me just seemed very everyday.
Hmm.
Just an alley uh, with very typical houses with typical cars and the little recycle bin.
Hmm.
But making a
Exactly.
drawing of it makes it seem like a very special place. So that's really neat how you you are adding that like connection. I mean, it really does feel like now it's personal, you know?
Hmm. That was so well put. Thank you for summing it up like that. That's exactly how I feel.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you so much. We had such a fun time hearing about you and seeing all the work that you've done. And do you ever get tired of traveling?
Yeah, I do. I like Seattle, but I am excited to have a little vacation soon.
Nice. Okay, we will go ahead and end here. And thank you so much for coming. Again, this was brought to us by the Snow Owl Library Foundation. So thank you so much, Eleanor, and we appreciate you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.